Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Writers Fantasy Forecheck podcast. As always, I am your host, Jacob Strozyk, joined once again by our continued miserable development of our covered hockey team's
I'm
co-host.
I'm Jacob Billington, and you're right. It's been a rough year for the Senators and Sabres so far.
We're having a great time. I don't know what you're talking about. I will never say a negative thing in an article ever. That's a lie. My last three have been rage driven. That's okay. Uh, This week, we're going to continue to go through fantasy trends, but before we get started, we do have the question of the week. Kind of on a topic because I was going through my team and I have six players injured in my one league on my team. So it made me think, it got me to thinking, how long are you willing to keep a non-star player on your IR before you drop them for somebody else? It's a two-parter question, so we'll start there.
So, like, if I have a star player that needs to go on IR,
If either you have a star player that needs to go on IR or you just have, say you got four mid-tier guys, but you only got two IR slots.
yeah,
Are you How long do you hold those other guys on IR before dropping them for a healthy guy and kind of moving that around?
yeah. So, I mean, I held on to Rasmus Ristolainen until he got healthy, and then traded him. So that kind of goes to show you, I'm willing to play the long game with IR.
Okay.
It's always, I mean, I'm not going to do it on somebody that's absolutely not worth it. But there's always some guys like Ristolainen. He's not going to get the points, but he gets the hits and blocks. So that's something that I saw as valuable assets, and obviously somebody else did because I was able to trade them. But
Mhm.
if they're going to be valuable to me eventually, I will hang on to them.
I can buy into that. I've had the issue where I've had a few guys kind of in that mid tier, like a Jaden Schwartz was in there. He's still in there actually. I think he's still on IR. But I dropped him. There was another person in the other league. I'm trying to think of who it was. Who just came back from injury, and he was like a. I am completely blanking. I should have had this written down somewhere. But either way, I had a couple of guys that were kind of mid tier, and it was an easy decision for me to just be like, okay, drop them and get somebody else rotated into this lineup
Yeah,
because I had four star players that got hurt. I
nice.
currently have Hamilton, Thompson, uh, Shea Theodore, and there's one more. There was actually Meyer just came back, so Timo Meyer's not on my IR anymore.
That's
So
brutal.
three,
That's brutal.
and it's killing me. So in this kind of two-parter question, uh, on the topic of somebody who just got signed, Patrick Kane's going to be coming off of IR officially soon,
Yeah.
and he's going to be ready to play for the Red Wings. Are you picking him up or are you leaving him on the waiver wire? Do you not have the confidence that he's going to produce in Detroit, or do you have the confidence?
I don't think he's going to be extremely productive in Detroit. I mean, they have a lot of stuff going for them. He's going to probably be reunited with Alex DeBrincat and take over on the top line from Lucas Raymond. So that's what I expect. But I don't think he's really going to produce like that 100-point guy that we've seen before. I think a full season's pace, if he can land around 60 points, that's a huge success for him. But in terms of him being on the waiver wire, I don't imagine he is. I'm just looking it up right now to see what his roster percent is on. Well, it would be really high now, but
It'll be higher now. Yeah.
it's at 74% on Yahoo, but only plus 1% in the last week. So a lot of people already had him and drafted him, and just kind of held him and stuck him on the IR like we talked about. So if he's on waiver wire, I'm absolutely picking him up. He is worth the chance. But yeah, if you can find him on waiver wire, absolutely pick him up.
Yeah. I wanted to bring it up because I saw that he wasn't completely 100%, but I wasn't expecting him at 100%. But on ESPN, his roster rate was sitting somewhere around 60%. So it's actually lower than the Yahoo one for once. And I found that kind of interesting that maybe some people are not really believing in him. I think he's going to be, if he plays, what, probably about 50 games this year, assume he gets hurt maybe once and misses a couple of games. I'd still say he's pushing about maybe 35,
Yeah,
40 points at the high end if he's playing 50 games.
yeah.
So I'm not exactly counting him out, but I don't think he's going to be up to that point per game that some people are probably hoping for on the Detroit offense, which has been pretty impressive this year.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, let's go to the uptrend guys to start. I have three names, nothing huge, nothing major, but a couple or a few guys that I feel are worth noting. How many you got?
I've got two real ones, then two worth mentioning.
Okay, let's start with your first real one then.
So I'm going to go with Alex Kerfoot. He's got 6 points in his last three games. He spent a lot of time on the fourth line, and he's been fantastic in Arizona, but he hasn't been put in a position to fail like he was in Toronto. He's not on the first line. He's not anything like that, but he's producing. He's doing really well. He hasn't been producing over the whole year, but as of late, he's finding opportunities and he's taking hold of them. And he's got 6 points in his last three games. He's a short term pickup. I wouldn't like pick him up to kind of bolster your whole lineup or anything. But if you have an extra spot, you're throwing somebody on IR. Right now is a great time to pick up Alex Kerfoot.
Yeah, I'm loving the fact that we're seeing more and more Arizona players kind of in this uptrend category as the weeks go by. It's really refreshing to see that trend. We had Ingram last week. Uh we had somebody else the previous week, and then we got Kerfoot this week. So I am in love with that fact. It's really underrated. I have the Yotes as one of my uptrend teams in general, so I'll kind of sprinkle that in here real quick. They're on 4 game win streak, so
And against good teams. It's not like they're
yeah,
playing
it's not like
Chicago.
they're playing a bunch of bums.
Yeah. Like they've beaten Vegas. I believe they beat Seattle. Or sorry, St. Louis. I don't know. And there's two other teams. They're on a really good streak right now.
Didn't they beat Boston too?
I was gonna say Boston, but I wasn't sure. But yeah, I
I
think
think they,
so.
I think Boston was one of them.
Yeah.
But regardless, they are absolutely cooking, and it is great to see. So I have no objections to that whatsoever. I'm going to stick with the West, and I'm going to talk about Trevor Moore from the LA Kings. He's hot. 7 points in his last 5 games. He's been a really big contributor to their offense recently. He's got a real nice uptrend, and he's shooting the puck, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to not pick him up at this point. His roster rate is going up fairly quickly. It went up about 15% on ESPN in the past week. So he's a pick him up before somebody else thinks about it, but he's still available in a lot of leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can find him anywhere on your rostered list or on your waiver wire, absolutely pick him up. I know Matthew, our producer, he was talking about how he kind of saved him last week. He had a monster week
Yep.
last week. So yeah, he was great for Matthew, and that's awesome. But yeah, he's just one of those guys that he's around until he's all of a sudden one of the best players on the ice. Like nobody really thinks of Trevor Moore as one of these guys that you should be looking at in fantasy until he has a week
Mm-hmm.
like he just had. So there's a good chance he might be on your waiver wire. So yeah, absolutely have a look.
Yeah, when you're overshadowed by star players and young players like
Yeah,
he is, because that's what his line mates are dealing with. He's got Kopitar, Fiala, Byfield. He's got that whole grouping up there with him that
yeah.
nobody's really paying attention to what he's doing. So grab him. Absolutely grab him. Who do you got next?
Uh, Again, sticking with the West, I've got three West players on this list. So don't talk to us about the Eastern media bias. So yeah, I've got Brandon Saad here. He's got 6 points in his last 6 games. I have always loved Brandon Saad. I feel like he's one of those players that like you just want him to score 40 every year. And that's not realistic, but it's like I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I don't know. It's really weird. He's like the opposite of Carter Verhaeghe. Like Carter Verhaeghe just came out of nowhere. Or this year, like Frank Vetrano. You look
Yeah.
at Brandon Saad and he's got so much potential, and it's just like it never really works out for him. And it's really frustrating to watch. But right now he's on a little bit of a heater. 6 points in his last 6 games. St. Louis is doing all right. Um, he's not going to get you much in terms of your hits and blocks. He's mostly just there for the point scoring. But while his point scoring is there, you might as well pick him up.
I think the only reason that people probably have that extra expectation of him is because of what he was associated with. He was traded for Panarin when they did the Columbus Chicago swap. So he's always going to have that kind of tied to him. So people are like, oh, he's not scoring like Panarin. He sucks. He's always been a good player.
Yep.
It's not like he's ever been somebody who's just an absolute, degenerate fourth liner that can't contribute no matter how hard he tries.
Yep.
He's always in a scoring position. He's fast, he can shoot, he can pass decently well. So if he's on a heater, yeah, grab him because people probably aren't thinking about it.
You know where the perfect fit for him would be right now?
Buffalo.
Colorado. They need Brandon Saad back. I don't remember what they traded him for. They traded him to St. Louis. I don't remember what the deal was.
Oh no, I don't remember what Colorado traded for. Oh yeah, you're right.
But yeah, like if they could have him back, and again, they might have absolutely fleeced St. Louis. I'm surprised that I can't remember what that deal was, but they would love to have him on the roster right now.
Yeah, him over Jonathan Drouin at this point would be an absolute steal for them.
Yeah.
Disappointing. Talking about Drouin, not Saad.
You know
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, what
I
you got?
just looked up the trade. Uh, oh no, he left in free agency. Right.
Oh, he
They
did?
traded Nikita Zadorov to Chicago for Brandon Saad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was a good trade for them. They're probably wishing they hung on to him.
Well, we all have those trades, don't we?
Yeah.
As fantasy owners, we all have trades that we regret,
Yeah.
but sometimes that's how it plays out. I'm gonna continue to stick with the West. I'm gonna do I'm gonna call it an off pick because it's not a whole lot of scoring that's going on, but it's a lot of good peripherals that are happening. And I'm gonna talk about Jake Middleton.
Yeah.
Really, really good for peripherals right now. He's putting up about 2 blocks per game. He's throwing a really good number of hits. And with he's playing mostly third line ice time. So he's not really going to negatively impact any teams. You're not really going to have to worry about plus minus because he's not getting a whole bunch of ice time that is going to be stuck out there in bad situations. He's only really giving you positive defensive stats. And if you need somebody to round out that part of your team, he's someone you can absolutely pick up. He's rostered at under 10%.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's doing all the right things. Like he said, the point scoring is not there. And sure, you want it to be there from your defenseman, especially if you're in a smaller league. But if you're in a deep league like we have going on, he's absolutely worth picking up and throwing on your roster because there's not many options. Like I dropped Mikey Anderson today. He's probably going to be one of the, or sorry, I put in a claim for Jonathan Huberdeau. I can say that because you're above me in the lineup.
I'd stand away from him. I don't want. I wouldn't. I'm not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
I have faith. Like he's got to turn it around at some point, and Calgary's on their way up. But we'll talk about him maybe next week. After he has
hopefully
an incredible week for me.
Hopefully.
But yeah, like you don't need that point scoring. There's not those really high end defensemen available in your waiver wire anyway. So if you need a defenseman, he's one of those guys that you absolutely look to pick up just for those kind of secondary categories. Or if you're in your points, sometimes leagues really like they hold a lot of value with the hits and the blocks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely pick that up.
And it's not like he's not scoring at all. He's got 4 goals, 4 assists, so he does have some points to him, but he's not going to be throwing up 15 goals a year. He'll maybe finish with like 8 on the high end. I still think 4 for him right now is a bit above what he can do, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
You said you got 2, what'd you call them? Mentionables?
Ones, yeah, mentionables, kind of fake ones to look out for. But
all right.
I'll throw out Jack Campbell. All right, so
okay.
Rumor has it he's coming up this week. Elliot Friedman has reported that a couple times. I think it's dependent on the game either tonight or was last night. I don't know. I didn't check. I believe it's tonight. But yeah, if he has a good game tonight, he's coming back up to the NHL. I think he's probably going to come up anyway, and he's absolutely going to be given another shot because why not give your goalie another shot before you have to trade a first round pick to get rid of him and more?
Yeah.
So they're putting everything they have on Campbell's lap, and they need him to do well. And Edmonton's been doing a lot better since the coaching change. I don't really think the coaching change, but that was kind of the turning point. Um, yeah, Chris Knobloch has a different system going. They're starting to adapt to that, and I think that it'll help Campbell a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a good segue into. I had the Oilers as one of my other hot teams right now. They're also on a 4 game win streak. So it looks like they're turning it around a little bit. Their defense has been solid. They haven't been really, doing barn burners a lot recently. They've actually had some good games where they're holding the scoring down in their own end.
Yeah,
So that'll help somebody like Campbell, absolutely. If he can get himself back up to speed, which he's been doing solid in the AHL. He hasn't been, lighting it up like some people might have hoped that he would, but he's been doing good. I know he had at least one shutout while he was down there too. So
yeah.
that's something that absolutely is going to help his confidence by the time he makes his way back up. I agree, not necessarily a hot player, but someone to watch. Who was your other one? And then I'll do my last one.
I'm going to throw Ridley Gregg in there. He was playing
Okay.
some great hockey. He was leading the rookies in scoring when he got injured. He had a high ankle sprain. Pretty quick turnaround for him for what you think of. Like usually it's 8 to 10 weeks for a high ankle sprain. He's back in 5. So how's he going to be when he comes back? I'm not sure, but he's coming back probably for tomorrow's game, if not the game after. So he's just I don't know if he's listed as center or center left wing, but he will be coming back as a center, so he'll get you your face-off stats if you need it. He's not too bad in the dot either, so if he can get right back to where he was playing some fantastic hockey. He will get you some hits. He will get you some points. He's just a great all-around player, and he's not going to really be producing like I don't know at a high-end 2C job, but he will be playing like a good depth role, and he will be getting you a point every second game, let's say, and some good face-off stats. So overall, he's just really good depth add.
Good rotational guy you can kind of just insert into your lineup on those off days
Yep.
where it's like, oh, who do we have playing today? Well, there's only 2 games total. Put
Yep.
him in there, rotate him in. He'll definitely get you something a little bit
Exactly.
extra, and that's kind of the spot that he would be in those higher roster leagues. Like you got like 15, 20 guys that you're rolling between.
Yep.
I'm kind of keeping with the theme there with young players for my last one. I have Simone Nemec from the New Jersey Devils. He got his call up, and with Hamilton out, he's going to be given a really good opportunity in his debut this season. He played 22 minutes. He had 2 assists,
Yep.
and he looked really good. That's just the long and short of it. He looked really good. So, is he going to be throwing up a point, 2 points a game? No, but he's a really good defenseman, and he's going to be giving you some solid defensive stats and be able to contribute in the offensive categories too, because that's just the type of defenseman he is. And I think he's in for a really good fantasy stint here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all the same reasons, if you can pick up Luke Hughes, do the same thing. Because one of them, they're both going to kind of have their audition to take over that first power play unit while Hamilton is out. So right now, I mean, Hamilton or Nemec has just slid right into Hamilton's spot, but Hughes and him are going to have their auditions and they're going to make some changes. So keep an eye on both of them and just see who's really getting the trust from the coach. Obviously, 22 minutes in your debut on a very good New Jersey Devils team. There's a lot of trust there. And I mean, he went second overall. It's not like we're talking about the most
Yeah,
recent 5th round pick, right? So he is very, very good at hockey. Keep an eye on him and the Devils blue line.
absolutely. The only other hot team I wanted to mention, just kind of keep it in the conversation, was the Rangers. If you can buy forwards on the Rangers right now, they're scoring very, very well. And if just as a bit of my own honorable mention, if you need a backup goaltender, there's no way anybody's dropping Shesterkin anytime soon. But Johnny Quick has won
Yep.
every game that he's played in except for one.
Yep.
So grab him if you need an extra goaltending spot or if you have that rotational thing going on with your goaltending. He's someone you can pick up and get some good wins out of. His stats are not bad at all.
I would absolutely love to have him on my roster, mostly because my whole season was banking on Vasilevsky coming back, and now he's back and he's got an 859 save percentage. He has been miserable, and he put up a what was it, an 8-2 loss to Carolina. It was
Yeah,
it
we'll
was
get to that later.
oh so bad.
We will talk
I
about Tampa later for sure.
he'll turn it around. I know he will. But man, all that waiting just for his first couple games to be stinkers. Ah, terrible. Like on paper, well, you can't really get a better goaltending duo in an 18-man league. I've got Sorokin and Vasilevsky, and they're
Yep.
not even playing good right now.
You're just getting torched. It's an unfortunate circumstance because you expect a lot more out of goalies of those caliber.
Yeah.
So here's the part where it doesn't make sense. You have the goaltending tandem of Vasilevsky and Sorokin. I'm
Yeah.
sitting here with Aiden Hill and Connor Ingram. If you looked me in the face and told me that I'd have a better goaltending duo than you at the start of the season,
Oh,
you would have that same face you have right now. You'd be laughing at me.
yeah. It's ridiculous, and that's the fun about fantasy hockey is that anything can happen on any given night. Like I have my app open here. Who's to say I don't know who's the most nobody on my team? Let's say Matthew Joseph. He could put up a 5 goal game tomorrow, and like it would be in highlights for a day, and then that's everybody moves on just because the NHL is so it's such a team sport that anybody can do anything. It doesn't matter who you have on your lineup; it's all luck. Like there's some skill, and like this guy should do really good.
Yeah.
Sorokin and Vasilevsky should be doing really good, but they're not.
The only people who would be perfect at this game is actual fortune tellers. If you believe it, that they can
Yes.
actually see the future, they're the only ones who would be amazing at this
Yep.
fantasy hockey thing that we all do for fun. I mean, we play for money, but we do it for fun more than anything else. And that's kind of the point. As long as you're enjoying it while you go through it, it's really the whole point. It takes up your time, a little bit of your day, and it's a good time. With that said, let's go to the downtrends and the things that make us sad.
Yep. I've only got two. How many do
I
you
got
have?
three. I got
Three.
three.
Okay.
I'll start off then. I want to talk about Cam Atkinson for a couple of reasons. One, as far as downtrend goes, he's got 1 point in his last 7 games, and it was just an assist. But the thing is, with Atkinson, this is about par for the course for what he does as far as production at this point in his career.
Yep.
He's a pickup drop candidate constantly because when he's not scoring, he's not really worth anything in fantasy because he
Yep.
doesn't do anything else. He'll get you maybe 2, 3 shots a game beyond that. But when he's hot, he's hot. He's scoring. He'll get you a hat trick or two during the season. He'll put up a couple multi-point games and he'll have like an 8-shot game mixed in there and he'll be playing 20 minutes a night. But when he's not, it's a whole lot of nothing. And to me, he's a drop candidate just for that cycled nature. I wouldn't hold on to him completely.
Yeah, I agree. He's somebody worth dropping right now. Like 1 point in your last 7 games is not what you want in your fantasy team, and he's not doing much else. There's the Flyers are coming back down to earth where everybody expected them to be. They're still doing all right. Like they're not doing bad by any means, but they're coming back down to earth after that hot start. And Atkinson is also trending down a lot. So yeah,
It's a shame because I like him as a player. He was a big savior for me a bunch of years ago when he had 40 goals, but that was a long
yeah,
time ago.
it was a long time ago. On my list, I'm going to start with Bowen Byram.
Mm.
So he had a 2 goal game a couple days ago, but he still hits the downtrend for me. He's got like outside of those games, he doesn't have too much going on for him. Um, he's not getting any points right now. He's got some on the season, but over his last like 10 games, I think he has 3 points, maybe even just those 2 goals. He's not huge on the hits and blocks. He's a mobile offensive defenseman that's not producing. So for the same reasons that I talked about, like Tyson Berry last week, and look what I predicted. He got scratched, and now they're looking for a trade. So don't tell me
Yep.
I don't know anything. Um, but yeah,
We don't know anything. We just said we guess at all of this.
no, no, no. I know everything. I'm the fortune teller. I
Yeah,
just don't
of
know
course.
myself.
Yes, of course.
um,
Crystal ball is that what the big O is on the Sens jersey?
yes,
It's just a
this is
crystal
my
ball.
crystal ball. Oh. But yeah, like he's just not doing much else other than well, he's not producing, so he's not doing much.
Yeah, I am a big Bone Byram fan. I was high on him to start the year. I had him in both leagues, and in our league I dropped him, and in my other league I traded him for Seth Jones. So I I also agree on the down. I needed to get something, and I needed a defenseman. And in my other league, Seth Jones is still averaging a decent amount of points. So I traded the potential for someone that gives me a little bit extra as far as my points go.
Yeah,
So I consider it an even trade at this point. Could come to bite me if he jumps up,
yeah,
but for now, I'm happy with it. I
yeah.
agree with the downtrend. He's been down all year. It's an absolute shame. I want to see him do more. End of story for that for me. All right, let's keep with the defenseman trend
Yep.
and talk about somebody that we've talked about a couple times in Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Yep.
And the realization of what we were talking about back when we were talking in the uptrend has finally come to roost. He's
Yep.
got 1 point in his last 7 games. His ice time is way, way down since Montour and Ekblad came back. And if you're holding on to him, you shouldn't. You really, really shouldn't. He's an
Yep.
absolute drop candidate. Stick him somewhere on the waiver wire. There are other defensemen that'll give you so much more because all he's really doing in fantasy is getting assists and maybe a few goals. He doesn't get blocks. He doesn't throw hits. Get a defenseman that'll get you better defensive categories.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. The only thing I'll add is that the whole blue line on Florida isn't producing as well as they were before. Even like since Montour came back, he's only got the 2 assists. So they're just not doing everything. But yeah, absolutely drop him. There's much better options. Even if like Will Borgen in Seattle for
Yeah,
his hits and blocks. Like I just picked him up and he's
Morgan
been
throws a lot of hits.
yeah. So he's somebody that I would absolutely replace with OEL, and he's definitely rostered even lower. So
Yeah, I'm done with him. I haven't picked him up personally, but I keep looking at him. I just keep seeing the roster rate drop and drop and drop, and I'm like, yeah, it's time to talk about him.
yeah.
I only got one more. What do you got left?
So I've got Evgeny Kuznetsov. So
Mm,
the whole news around the NHL right now is that he's being a healthy scratch tonight for what the team is calling a mental break. But I don't know if I buy that. That's just
okay, sure.
we need to sit you, but you're a star player. So it's the same situation as Line. And look, Line came back and he's been doing all right. Um, iffy, all right. But
All
Kuznetsov
right by Columbus standards right now.
exactly. And so Kuznetsov's got I believe it's 9 points in 21 games. Not terrible, but you want more out of Kuznetsov. So um right now he's kind of on the downtrend. That being said, I'm predicting that 2 weeks from now I'll be talking about him being on the uptrend.
Okay. I like the bold prediction. He was on the downtrend for a lot of last year, too. Didn't
He
really
was.
score that many goals, wasn't really putting up that many assists, and was just kind of a blah player. And I
Yeah.
was victim to that in my one league, and I held on to him for way too long, hoping that he would jump up. But he
Yeah.
is a good player. He has that potential to just come back and be the Kuznetsov of old and put up probably 25, 30 goals. Because that's what
Yeah.
he is. He's a really good goal scorer.
Yep.
I'm going to finish it off with the Russian theme, and I'm going to do Andrei Kuzmenko.
Yep.
Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing, in my opinion. He's got 1 point in his last 6 games. He's averaging less than 2 shots. It's just under less than 2 shots per game in that same span of time. And it really is a shame because he's a great shooting player. Last season, we talked about how well he did as a shooter and his ridiculous shooting percentage.
Yep.
So it's a shame to see it drop. I would like to see him shoot more, and maybe the goals will follow and the assists will follow on top of it.
Yep.
But it's just a shame to see him go from a top end scoring talent down to some, playing 13, 14 minutes a night sometimes because he just doesn't have it in him.
Yeah. I'd be really curious to see the split between his play under Boudreaux and Tocchet. I didn't notice much of a fall off or much of a rise. I think he was pretty steady, but I wonder if his play just doesn't support Tocchet's system, and that could be a thing. Or the Canucks are doing really good this year, which means there's a lot more pressure on them. I wonder if that has something to do with it. He just can't play under the pressure. Like I don't know what it is, and like I've been sitting here trying to think of like why is he not playing well, and there's so many factors that could be it, but it also could just be he had a glorified rookie season. He came in and scored what was it 39 goals last year,
Yeah.
and then it's yeah he peaked already, and now he's an older player coming from Russia, so it's not like he is 21 and we're saying that he peaked because that's just kind of foolish, but maybe that was like he just had that adrenaline coming from Russia and just let it all out. And that was kind of all he had in the tank. I don't know. And obviously, Matthew, who's our producer, is a Canucks content writer, and he's probably sitting there yelling at us, saying like, "No, he
He can
was."
hop in and say what he wants to say if he really wants. No one's stopping him.
So yeah, it's really interesting to see what's going to happen with Kuzmenko.
Yeah, I just expected more, and it's a shame to see that he couldn't do it. You made the point that I was going to add on kind of towards the middle of your comment is he's not a 21-year-old. He's over the age of 26. He has that experience in playing professional hockey, whether it's here or over in Russia. So he knows what it's like to have pressure. He knows what it's like to win. So I wouldn't accept that as an excuse for why he's not producing more than anything else. I think it might be closer to the first thing you mentioned, where he might just not fit in the system that he's currently playing in. And that sometimes happens. And it's a shame for fantasy owners like us who are trying to get these players who had such great years the prior season.
Yeah.
And we're getting nothing this time.
Well, and I do just kind of want to give a shout out. We all and almost everybody criticized the Canucks for giving him a 2-year, $5.5 million extension instead of going like 7 years with this guy. They're looking a little bit smart now.
Sometimes those bridge deals are worth it, man.
Yeah, that's why we don't get paid the big bucks.
I am personally a defender of bridge contracts. I see a lot of value when you do bridge contracts the right way.
Yeah, it depends on who it is. If Tim Stützle just got a 3-year deal, that would come back to bite Ottawa big time. But like Jake Sanderson, I would have been fine with a 3-year deal for Sanderson.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. We're currently fighting the problem of the Rasmus Dahlin bridge because he got a $6 million, and now we're going to end up paying him 11 when you probably could have shelled out another $2 million and been paying him 8 for the next 5 years instead of 11 for the next 9, basically.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, but there's right ways to do it and there's tough ways to do it.
Exactly.
On the topic of downtrend teams, we can do these real quick. We talked about the Lightning a little bit when we were talking about Vasilevsky, but that's just unfortunate. They're on a 4-game losing streak and they got blown out, like we said. I wouldn't necessarily say sell on the Tampa Bay players just yet because there's still a lot of high-end talent sitting there. But don't be looking for a lot of value in the peripheral market from Tampa Bay because goaltending is not great right now. Defense isn't great right now. The scoring is mostly still there, but that's about it.
Even guys like Anthony Cirelli, he's not doing anything this year. Like that blows my mind that we're in an 18-man league, and I'm 90% sure that he's on the waivers, and nobody's even sniffed him. And we haven't talked about him yet this year. He was so good when he broke into the league, and now he's just not. And that blows my mind because that does not happen in Tampa.
There's a lot of players that have done that over the course of the years. And maybe we can make that a topic one of these weeks. We can kind of go through those types of players. But as far as my other downtrend team goes, I'm not even sorry or hurt to say it, but it's Buffalo. I know I've said it once before, but for the love of God, they can't score. They can't keep the puck out of their own net, and they don't know how to play defense. Everything is a downtrend. Every good player is snake bitten. They had one good game against the Rangers recently, but beyond that, it's just been dog water, and I would avoid them like the plague.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to really say. Like they're just not doing good.
It's sad. Sad personally, and sad from a fantasy perspective of people were expecting a lot out of the fantasy or out of the Buffalo forwards, especially Skinner, Tuck, Thompson, Cousins, that whole grouping, and half of those are injured right now. So it's just painful.
Well, and like Cousins, he just came back from, I don't know, he got punched in the face and it like destroyed his game. I don't know. But he's come back and he even said it. He's like, I've been terrible. Like I'm getting a lot of shots, but I get paid to score goals. Like he knows it. He's trying to fix it, but it just nothing's working in Buffalo.
Hopefully we'll see them on the uptrend, or hopefully for me, I'll see them on the uptrend in a fantasy perspective. I'm sure you hope for otherwise from an actual standings perspective.
Obviously, it would be fun to see some Ottawa Senators playoff hockey. I really like, honestly, a lot of the teams in the Atlantic. I find it so hard to cheer against. Like, I'm gonna get flamed for this one. I'll say this on this show, not the Senators Roundtable. But like, I love the Toronto team. I love what they have. I love that they added Domi, Bertuzzi, Reeves. That's so much fun. I love the Buffalo Sabres. I don't like the Canadiens roster. I don't really have much faith in the Reeves. They a lot of great prospects, but outside of that, I don't love what they have on the roster already. Um, Florida, love watching Florida play, and that's the Kachuk effect, though.
Before I wrap this up, I would just like to say you will not convince me in this world or the next, no matter what show we are on, to say I'd like the Toronto Maple Leafs. I will never say it. I will never agree with you. Never, ever, ever.
I,
Anyway,
I've been pretty proud to say that. I do like
I
a
will never
lot of the
say it.
things that they've done with the roster.
I will never say positive things towards the Toronto Maple Leafs while I'm a Sabres fan. It's against my nature.
What's the phrase that you're never gonna say?
You heard me.
I'm gonna go back and clip that.
You can clip whatever you like, but you will not distort my words. Let's do the outro real quick. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning into this week's episode of Fantasy Forecheck. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred listening channel, as well as the Hockey Writers podcast and YouTube pages, where you can find anything and everything else hockey related. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Strozyk7.
And I'm there at Jacob Billington.
And you can feel free to drop us a like, leave a comment, and we will keep you up to date on all things fantasy throughout the year. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. We will see you next time.